I'm going to try to cut this top straight. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife because it's a little sharper than that other knife. Okay, I'll clean that up and come back. I've trimmed the top here, it's fairly straight. I'll do some minor adjustments to it, but that's what it's going to look like once the phone's in there. Okay, here's the belt loop. I'm going to cut the back part of it that's going to sew against the back side of the case. In the past, I've cut it about here and just sewn this top portion. This time I think I'm going to sew the entire back portion of the belt loop against there. So I've drawn a little line here and one on the other side, and I'm going to cut across there. Okay, so it'll fit together like that. This side will be sewn onto the back of the case, and this side will be up against your body with a belt loop through the center of this. I drew on the back of an envelope here kind of what I want the case to look like. What I'm going to do with this is this portion here I want to have a lighter brown, and this to be black and this to be black, but I have to make this piece, and it's going to be sewn over the top, and that's where the center stud that hooks this strap on is going to be hooked. So now I have to figure out how to make this center piece that's going to sew on top. Okay, in my back of the envelope drawing, this piece here that's going to be sewn on, I've made a template that I think is kind of like that shape. I'll cut this out and wrap it around the case, and I may have to do some adjustments but get it to fit. And of course I've made it out of my favorite template material, old cereal boxes. I've cut this piece, this template, and it looks like it's pretty close. So it'll end up looking something like that once it's sewn on, the real leather piece. So now I can use this piece to cut a piece of leather with. I'm going to go ahead and trace this template out on this piece of leather here so I can cut it out. I'm leaving the wings a little bit long because I'll trim those to size later so that I can get a good fit. I'll finish this up and come back. I finish cutting out this front piece, and it fits fairly well. I'm going to go ahead and cut a groove around the edge for the stitching. This piece is cut and grooved for stitching. The front of the case is pretty much done as far as the shape. I went ahead and rounded these corners. I'm going to go ahead and cut a groove for stitching around the edge now. You can see that groove around the edge. I've gone ahead and cut a template for the back piece, so I'll show you how that's going to fit. I left it a little bit long on the bottom and I'll trim it off, I think, once I glue this on. So it looks something like that. And then this piece will be sewn on the front. And then the back piece will have a flap that folds over and hooks on with a stud in the center. Okay, I think the next part is to go ahead and cut this back piece, and I can probably start dyeing the leather. I'm ready to start dyeing leather. I'm going to dye this front piece and I'm going to do the belt loop. And it's going to be a brown color. I'll finish these up and come back. I finished dyeing the belt strap and the front decorative piece. I'll go ahead and dye the back and the front black. Of course, these are brown. Okay, the back and the front are dyed. Just waiting for it to dry now. Since I'm going to use two different colors of leather this time, I'm going to change the way I would normally do this. I'm going to go ahead and put this satin sheen sealer on the outer surfaces, because the dye tends to rub off on your hands and I don't want to contaminate the black into the brown. So I'm going to cover the external surfaces with the satin sheen, but not the sides that get glued on. So like the back side of this will be glued on to the front of this. So I'm going to leave this one alone. I won't put any sealer on this one currently. I'll put sealer on the front of this one and on the front of this, but not the back, and probably the inside I'll do. And then the outer back surface I'll put the sealer on, but not the inner surface that's going to get glued. So I'll get that started now. You may have noticed that when you put this on, the color darkens up as well. It'll lighten up a little bit, but it'll still be darker than when I started. I went ahead and put the sealer on both these brown pieces, but not on the back side of it. On the back side of this one. This is covered on this side and the center, but where I'm going to glue, I didn't coat it. And the front piece, I didn't coat the edge. It's going to get glued down, or this face side, because I'm going to glue this piece onto it. So I'll just let this dry and then pick back up after it's dry. This has had a chance to dry. There's a couple things I'm going to do before I go to the next step. which is to get this glued on here. Number one is I'm going to go ahead and use this burnishing tool on the inside. I hope you can see the finish on here. And I'm going to rub this on here and it'll smooth it out. It'll be easier to do it now while it's apart. You can see it now. It looks shinier, but it feels smoother. It helps the nap of the leather lay down. So I'm going to do it on the parts here on the back side of the leather that's rougher. I'm going to go ahead and also do the edge of this before it's put together because it'll be easier. And I'm going to use the little groove here and help roll the edge of the leather over a little bit and make it smoother to the touch. In fact, you can see this edge. I don't know how well that'll show up, but it's kind of rough, and after you do it, it looks smooth. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and mark for stitching on this where that little groove is. If you'll recall, this is grooved. And use the little stitching wheel. It just helps you locate the stitches. That could need something hard to press against. It'll make little indentations in the leather so you know where to put the holes. You could do it just by sight if you were good at it. Okay, you can see the little indentations for the stitching. Then the last thing to do on this piece before I glue it on, is to punch a hole in here and put the stud on. So I'll do that next.